The following video is on a video game, so I shouldn't have to worry about the BBC holding this video hostage for a week and totally sinking any chance it has of picking up steam. This video is on the 90s classic Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri. If you haven't played it, well, I don't blame you. It does look like the fake data you see on the screens in the background of the Enterprise. This game does have a plotline, and we will be cracking that open today, so spoilers, I guess. If any of you do have a taste for this game, then you'll know the plotline at the back of your hand because of its replayability. You may think it's insane to play this over and over again, but I'm sure everything's fine. Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri is the 1999 sci-fi asset swap of veteran developer Firaxis' tentpole Civilization series. Namely, Alpha Centauri is, at its core, Civilization 2 covered in bolognese. I'm well aware that there are plenty of videos on this game already espousing its greatness, but I also understand that the modern eye will take one look at these graphics and menus and clunky hotkeys and will balk, running back to the safety of much more intuitive games like Europa Universalis. Yes, this makes much more sense. Better get enough ducats to colonize Dali. Strategy games have a reputation, and 4X games have that reputation times 4. Dull map games where you push little men around a board and try to turn a 2 into a 3.
So I've changed the value of 1 wood to now be 1 wood. So to trade 1 wood for a wood, you must have a wood. What would you like to do?
I'll use wood.
Wood?
But that isn't Alpha Centauri's allure. You certainly can min-max in this game. You can make all the numbers green, construct the best laser tank, and paint the map your flavour of bolognese. But you can do that anywhere. No, Alpha Centauri provides something special, and I wish to figure out what that is, and why it's also so hard to replicate. But this is a fair warning for anyone actually wishing to play this game. Imagine, playing a game. It is 25 years old, and it's not Pac-Man. Last year, Steam finally put this title up on their store for an absolutely extortionate £5. Jesus Christ, man, don't you know there's a recession on? This, quite frankly, is a steal, and for a few months, I, and many like me who don't quite know what good old games is, enjoyed revisiting this titan of the genre. But then a Windows update happened. Windows 11, to be precise. Sid Meier's Alpha Centauri stopped running on modern machines. It's all very technical. This chap here has a good rundown on what happened, but as far as I can tell, a 2 turned into a 3 in a more important part of the game, and now we can't play it. Thankfully, autism knows no bounds, and there are fixes. The good old games version apparently has updated their copies to run fine, but Steam's version still has issues, namely the DLC don't work. I recommend downloading the Thinker mod. Seems to do all the hard work for you. The gameplay you're seeing is all Thinker mod, and it does have some balance tweaks compared to the base, so no, I'm not playing pure Alpha Centauri. But it makes the game work, the art and voice acting are all base game, and the quit screen still love bombs you into sticking around.
Please don't go. The drones need you. They look up to you.
It's good enough for me and my purposes. With that disclaimer out of the way, let's try to decode this bolognese. Don't let it latch onto your head or...
Because you will see the devil, and he'll try and rip your heart out through your kneecaps.
It's the future, and we fucked up the planet. Boy, that bet I made in 2005 is going to make me the richest, disgusting radioactive mutant in the barren wastes of Manchester. And that's all before the end of the world. Zing. There must be some kind of way out of here, said the academician to the CEO, and there was. Unity. A spaceship carrying humanity's best and brightest to the nearest potentially colonizable world. One problem. A spaceship full of humanity's best and brightest is carrying human beings. Someone kills the captain and everyone breaks out into factions. The irony of calling the ship Unity is so on the nose it must have been intentional in-universe. Maybe it's like that Simpsons episode where Unity was the spaceship full of idiots they sent into the sun. Planetfall. The 7 brightest minds, and with the DLC some assorted hangers-on and daft-looking aliens, start to carve out their slice of the planet. Life will be tough on the frontier, but the future of the human race is in the hands of these people. I think the reason why Bowie's Starman didn't want us to blow it is because he knew if we bollocksed up the Earth, our species would be dossing on their celestial couch for the next 50 millennia. It's time to introduce our contestants for the universe's favourite game show, Who Wants to Win a Future? Okay, contestant number 1 is Pravin Lal. Now, no one was more shocked than Pravin here when Captain Garland got his brains blown out back on the Unity. Pravin's a nice guy who thinks we could all put aside our differences and get along. And what that has to do with upholding the United Nations Charter is a total mystery, am I right, folks? We have fun, we have fun. Contestant number 2 is godly by name and godly by nature. Miriam Godwinson proves that when humanity is faced with the enormity of space, a good chunk of us go all Warhammer 40k and start building churches on Mars. Boy, do I hope tea with this vicar doesn't result in my disintegration. Now, contestant number 3 here wants everyone to know that he fully intends to share his prize winnings with everyone in his collective. Well, ain't that nice there, Mr. Sheng-Ji Yang? Chairman Yang here likes order, structure, and everyone doing what they're bloody well told. You tell him, Sheng-Ji. Contestant number 4 has all the boys in the barracks howling for her. Colonel Corazon Santiago is here to kick ass, take names, and tame planets so she can... I don't know, you know the boot camps on TV where they make people go through those tires one by one? Yeah, like that, but everywhere. Contestant number 5 is so smart, he sees everything in 3D. I thought we all saw in 3D, but I'm no Russian super scientist. Prokhor Sakharov thinks he can think his way to humanity's future, and with a brain box like his and an aspirin or two, he might just do it. Contestant number 6 has got a green, or should I say red, thumb. Lady Deirdre Sky! That's right, folks, we got royalty here. Lady Sky looks back at the ball of toxic waste that is old Earth and says, I think maybe we should have had a rhododendron bush instead of a plastics factory. Hey, she may have been late, but she's not wrong. And finally, the man himself, the guy directly funding tonight's program, contestant number 7, Nwabudike Morgan. Mr. Morgan says if I don't say something nice about him in this intro, I can kiss my pension goodbye. So, what great hair this guy's got, eh, folks? 55 years old and a total silver fox. Am I right, ladies? Oh, and there's these guys too. Don't look them in the eye. They don't deserve recognition as human beings. These fine specimens of humanity are going to fight tooth and claw for the right to basically run our entire species to their liking. They all reckon they know what went wrong last time, and their special hyperfixation is going to be what fixes it. So, naturally, these ideologies aren't compatible. Yang's socialist Buddhist worker drones aren't exactly able to function in the hyper-capitalist super-economy of Morgan Industries. Zakharov is the kind of guy who hangs outside of one of Miriam's churches with a God is dead placard, and Lau cries himself to sleep every night because one of his secretaries said good morning like he didn't really mean it. Sure, even on a good day, humanity's greatest enemy is typically other bits of humanity. But did I mention it's a bad day? And when you're drawing lines in the fungus and building your hyperfortress, wasn't there someone you forgot to ask? The planet we've all landed on has native life. Sure, it's not much. A bunch of worms, this weird fleshy tower thing, and sometimes an island eats your boat and we all hope it doesn't come back. But it's what proved to us that we could live here in the first place. The planet, called Planet, you've got to remember these are the brightest minds that Earth has to offer, isn't completely habitable. You need protective suits to live on its surface. Bases need to be in domes, and before we plant trees or anything, you have to get rid of all this weird red fungus. It's a fixer-upper, lightly used, some damp in the bathrooms, but perfect for an exile civilization in your price range. No pets, I'm afraid. Sorry, the landlord wants to be able to rent this place out as soon as you fail to meet your first payment. But lovely area, right next to his sun, you don't get that on Pluto. There is a problem, though. The fungus and the worms may present a decent challenge to our future warriors, but if you played a 4X game before, you're probably well aware of what's going on here. You might have called them barbarians, or pirates, or independent states, or whatever, but these hostile opponents are supposed to be a physical threat to your chosen faction in the early game before you start atomizing Spartans by the millions. But in the early parts of the game, you'll notice there's more to these worms than meets the eye. The fact they're called mind worms might be a bit of a clue, but if not, how about this?
As the writhing, teeming mass of mind worms swarmed over the outer perimeter, we saw the defenders recoil in horror. "Stay calm. Use your flame guns," shouted the commander, but to no avail. It is well known that the mind worm boil uses psychic terror to paralyze its prey, and then carefully implants ravenous larvae in the brains of its still conscious victims. Even with the best weapons, only the most disciplined troops can resist this horrific attack. Lady Deirdre Sky, our secret war.
When you hit key points of the game, these rather bulky text boxes will pop up, telling you something your faction leader is going through. This is the same for all factions, which suggests your group isn't particularly special in regards to what's happening planet-side. You're being viewed as one entity, humanity as a mass. And all this is because your special little guy has been having some strange dreams in their Bacta tank full of adrenochrome. Something is reaching out, trying to make contact with your mind. It's not some great psychic beast that lives on planet like these horrible mid-game green slug monsters. No, it is planet. Everything, from the worms and the living islands to the fungus you've been cleaning out to build basic amenities, is part of a singular living organism. And it's figured out its strange new scabies infection is a little more aggressive than usual. Lady Sky and her Gaian faction seems to figure this out before everyone else, but regardless of your consideration of the planet, it's happening to you whether you like it or not. And unlike other games where if you paint enough of the map, the barbarian problem usually either goes away or becomes irrelevant, Planet is here to stay. Planet kind of techs up alongside the other factions. It starts simply enough, by throwing a few worms at you whenever your units step into the fungus, but then it throws its islands of the deep at your boats, its locusts of Chiron at your planes, and even grows its own form of artillery, like it's trying to mimic your forces. Plus, occasionally, patches of fungus can grow into adjacent tiles, destroying any improvements you've made. Planet keeps its presence known throughout the game, and it keeps talking to your leader in these little text cutscenes. Planet is a character all of its own, and while it lashes out at humanity frequently, it mostly just wants to understand us, why we do the things we do and build what we build. You can sort of choose to help or hinder the entity. You can even start to build the planet's units if you get the right technologies, or the Gaians, or Char Dawn, but you're not going to be Char Dawn, trust me. Alpha Centauri isn't the story of future humans blowing each other up. At least, that's not the story it tries to tell. It's the story of humanity dealing with the world around it, and the many ways it can choose to do so. It's the story of repercussions, of decisions made years ago affecting our descendants years hence. But Alpha Centauri tells this story in a far more interesting way than just throwing up a couple of paragraphs. Its gameplay, world building and plot are intrinsically linked. Unlike many games of its kind these days, Alpha Centauri really works at bridging the gameplay narrative gap. It's not something you typically see in this kind of tactical game. Sure, people remember the plotline to Command and Conquer, but it's not because it's high fiction, it's because it's this.
Russia's borders will stretch from coast to coast. Space! Oh my God.
You are made of stupid.
Yes, I suppose you could argue Hearts of Iron has an impactful, deep plot, but that's because it's World War II. The writers on that season of human history really knew how to tug at the heartstrings and create hateable villains. Alpha Centauri is new fiction whole cloth, or at least influenced by other works, like all fiction ever, and there's several ways it goes about doing this. The game has this really interesting loop of hint to imagery to effect that allows your mind to fill in the murky bits. Take, for example, the secret project, the Self-Aware Colony. Secret projects are the wonders of this game. There can only be one built each playthrough, and they provide bonuses greater than your usual buildings. Everyone wants to build them, but they take time and resources to build, and if you're halfway through building one when Zakharov pops it out, tough titty. At first, you just get a name and an effect. Self-Aware Colony. Okay, so CCTV linked to a central processor. It makes buildings cheaper to run and gives your policing a bit of a boost. This is all hunky-dory. The Self-Aware Colony is unlocked by getting the technology Self-Aware Machines. In and of itself, Self-Aware Machines is kind of a nothing technology. It makes your spies better, and the flavoured text and description suggest simply an advancement in technology, a necessary one in order to keep up with the Robo Joneses. It even comes with a quote from the philosopher Immanuel Kant about the importance of understanding. It's a good thing, right? Then you build it, and then you get this video.
We must descend. We must descend. We must descend. Will we next create false gods to rule over us? How proud we have become, and how blind. Sister Miriam Godwinson, we must descend.
So, that's what +1 police in every city means. Does it feel worth it? Every secret project has one of these videos. and they could be utopic and hopeful like the ascetic virtues, or grim, dark and depressing like the command nexus, or it could be the dream twister. The Dream Twister, because sometimes death isn't enough to make people do what you want. The factions are also unique in how they play, and not just because they get 2 special points in building buildings instead of 1. Each one has a particular hiccup that no other faction can imitate. The Hive, for example, cannot use democratic policies to run their government. At all. Policies give your factions bonuses to help run things, but they usually come with downsides alongside upsides, and the Hive is completely locked out of this potential key part of the game. On the flip side, all their bases start with defences, making them tougher nuts to crack in the early game, allowing them to build up better with less worries about attack than the other groups. The Gaians, unlike everyone else, actually get food from the fungus, meaning they don't have to focus on tearing it up like the other factions do, giving their formers, which are the workers in this game, time to do other things. And if the Gaians choose to go the planet route of building mind worms, then these worms can heal in the fungus that all the other factions probably already torn up. Miriam Godwinson's believers cannot gain technology through research until a certain point of the game. 4X veterans probably dropped their extra large Dr. Peppers when they heard that. Technology is usually very important in these games. Having a good tech rate is often the difference between life and death, even if you're not going for a technology victory. Technology, in Alpha Centauri and most other games with any form of tech tree, decides what you can actually do at any given time. What units and buildings you can build, what social policies you can instate are all tied to the tech tree. Hell, in this game there's a tech trading mechanic, meaning if you have a technology somebody else needs, you can stand to make a tidy profit off your knowledge, usually another technology. Miriam's delay at getting this technology is not only thematic, because Miriam's lot view technological advancement as a major reason why old Earth burst into flames, it also drastically changes her playstyle. While the Believers are built to be aggressive, as their unit troops have bonuses added in combat, a Miriam player is going to need some friends to trade with, otherwise she's going to be throwing rocks and sticks at Santiago's latest Ultima Death Tank 5000. Alpha Centauri doesn't offer the wide, eclectic roster of factions modern 4X and grand strategy games do, but focusing it down on making all 7, and yes, I said 7, factions feel distinct and different makes you want to play the game 7 times just to see how it feels. In fact, Alpha Centauri's spiritual successor by the same company, 2014's Beyond Earth, discovered this issue the hard way. All of Beyond Earth's factions are entirely modular. Bar some changes in numbers only University of Planet dweeboids care about, any faction in that game can basically do whatever it wants without much worry. They certainly don't get the unique abilities and drawbacks their decade-older counterparts do. This, in turn, makes these characters, despite their more modern gameplay, flashy graphics, and, oh yeah, the fact they can move now, much less memorable than the single still image of your chosen faction leader in Alpha Centauri. It helps that the game is filled with quotes from these guys. Every time you learn a new tech or build a new secret project, odds are one of these faction leaders are going to give you an insight into their lives and mentality. We'll discuss this more later. Before we wrap up this segment, there's just one more thing I want to highlight that I think is the pinnacle of storytelling in this game. It's show don't tell at its finest. Nerve stapling. This is something you can do from the start of the game, and it stops an unhappy populace rioting. That's it. That's the information you get. It's never fully described what nerve stapling is. You get what it's called, and you know what it does, and that's pretty much it. But you do get this image, which is the button you press when you want to do it. And if the other factions find out you did it, it's an atrocity, and they hate you like you nuked one of their cities. But it does turn a rioting drone into a useful tool of your state. This is perfect storytelling. You don't need the nitty-gritty here. You know these are future civilizations put to dire straits. You know when push comes to shove, governments can and will do terrible things to their own people to keep order. We know, thanks to stuff like the longevity vaccine in-game, that these people have access to technology far beyond what we have today. all these disparate ideas come together to make your brain fill in the blanks. Nerve stapling is one of the most bone-chilling science fiction concepts, in my opinion, simply for the fact we don't know what it is, but we know what it does. And then we get the knowledge of an in-universe book called How to Raise a Nerve-Stapled Child. This is admittedly part of the semi-jokey end screen that rates your performance, but God, that makes my skin crawl, far more than the Mind Worms or the Dream Twister. This is, in my mind, shockingly effective. So why hasn't anyone done storytelling like this since 1999? What I like about Alpha Centauri is that it doesn't judge. It presents its world to us through its gameplay and imagery and lets us do that, like all good science fiction should. Sure, you can argue who killed Captain Garland in the tie-in novel Until the Cows Come Home, but there isn't really a villain here. I know that I myself, who feels like I'm betraying one of my core principles to do a Fallout New Vegas playthrough without siding with Mr. House, wants to paint Shenji Yang as an absolute monster, but it's the survival of the human race here. Yang is eloquent. While his conclusions are dehumanizing, you can tell they come from experience, sometimes personal. You don't go down in history saying,
Einstein would turn over in his grave. Not only does God play dice, the dice are loaded.
Without having gone through some shit. Then you have Lal, who stands against turning people into biological brain-damaged machines, so, he must be the good guy. But, by God, does he sound like a rube. A rube twice my IQ, but still, he sounds like he's being taken for a ride. Plus, he's a simp.
I loved my chosen. How then to face the day when she left me? So I took from her body a single cell, perhaps to love her again.
You've got gene therapy clinics and enough human genetic material to create an army of compliant Colonel Santiagos, each with their protectiveness and motherly qualities ramped up to 11 and... I think I've said too much. Cut this bit from the vid. 4X presents a fantastic way to tell stories that don't ask the audience to pick a side. And the way the story handles Planet is, I think, the smoking gun that this player's ambivalence was intended. Everyone gets Planet dreams. Deirdre does have full-blown conversations with it, but everyone else still gets them, and seems to treat them as worrying secrets to be scared of. Yes, I'll admit Alpha Centauri telling us this in big, chunky blocks of text isn't perfect, but it does a lot of the legwork elsewhere to give this a pass. Besides, this is the only way that other 4Xs tell their stories in any capacity. I've already discussed Beyond Earth, Alpha Centauri's SEN kid, but it failed in this way to a far greater degree. Lots of text, very little of which seemed to have any bearing on what you were actually doing. Let's focus on a different, better received example. Endless Space 2. Good game, and it tries to match Alpha Centauri's wit at several places. It's actually very successful in some of these. The Cravers being on a planet slowly eating it away to nothingness. The Unfallen colonising by sending their vines across the stars. Horatio splicing the genes of other species into themselves to receive bonuses. But these systems exist above the gameplay, if that makes sense, while Alpha Centauri's are baked in. Everyone deals with drones. Everyone gets attacked by mind worms. Everyone talks to Planet. The core of Alpha Centauri that helps us players understand what these characters are going through and what they stand for is their shared experience. Yes, these factions have differences, but they are still, fundamentally, people like you or I. This is another reason why the Alien Crossfire expansion factions are misfires. The Manifold are too alien to understand, and the others are forged by events after hitting the planet. Char Dawn becomes the Worm Prophet when he lands on the planet, or whatever happens to him, it's not really clear. Ulrich's Vensgard only makes sense once water cities start becoming a thing, something that only happens partway into the game. Form and Demise talking points are about drones' rights, again something that's only a concept post-planetfall. Aki Zeta 5 arises from the cybernetic consciousness, an alien concept to us. And Cinder Rose is, honestly, an attempt to grab a piece of the cyberpunk pie. The others, though, come to Planet fully formed, and therefore don't need the events of the game to define them. This allows us to get where they are coming from, rather than to try to understand aliens or space pirates. Endless Space 2 tells us what's happening in chunky text boxes. We press a button and a 2 becomes a 3. You can fashion great gameplay moments out of that, but it can come at the expense of the story. Some other examples if you need them. Stellaris. Technically a grand strategy game, but 4X and grand strategy have always been kissing cousins. Stellaris' appeal is its modularity. You can put any portrait to any civics with any ship design and bam, you've got an empire. But this sacrifices any sense of personality, except for those you choose to give it. Sure, it's a great creative writing exercise for failed authors like me, but most people are going to default to making the Klingons or the Asari or the Daleks. Or have someone mod them in for you if you're too lazy. I mean, time is credits, am I right? And galactic civilizations... God knows what they're doing. You can produce enough television in those games to make whole planets join your empire. Imagine. America makes Mad Men and Canada decides it's time to become the 51st state. A lot of games in this genre, when it comes to tackling science fiction, default to text boxes and descriptions of theoretical physics concepts, cribbed from a coffee table soft science hardback. And yes, Alpha Centauri does have that, but it remembers the most important thing about science fiction. In the future, magic and science may be indistinguishable. Whether it's androids, clones, psychic powers, rogue AIs, or celestial dragons, each step humanity takes forward opens us up to wonders both great and terrible. But those wonders are up there, right now, waiting for us to discover them, and they are meaningless to us down here until we get up there. And, most importantly, it's going to be us who has to discover them. One of us is going to have to get in that spaceship and touch the monolith, ride the worm, or even talk to planet. That's what's interesting. Not the laser guns or the telekinesis. It's us. There should be more games like Alpha Centauri, but Alpha Centauri is such a precise formula that it's understandable no one's come out of the lab screaming Eureka. Instead, it's more like a monkey with the rage virus. Modern 4X and grand strategy has a problem that's been around for a very long time. DLC. Developers are not fixing the cause of their game because it doesn't make them any money. They want to pile more stuff into it because they can slap a new price tag on it. Paradox is a company that's very guilty of this. I'd still say some of their flagship series like Victoria and Crusader Kings are missing key elements just so they can release it later on down the line, but the rot of this is everywhere. The most recent Civilization was an attempt to revitalise the series by aping the gameplay of an up-and-comer, Humankind, but people didn't really like Humankind. Firaxis just second-guessed themselves and saw knives in the shadows that turned out to be just shadows. A lot of people say it takes time for a Civilization game to get good. It's what happened with Civilization 5, and, while I disagree wholeheartedly, a lot of people came around to Civilization 6. I think you're crazy. It's a clunky, distant mess that bolts annoying nuisances to itself rather than fix its core problems. My first Civ game was Civilization 5, but I went back to play Civ 4 and I loved it. Then I went back to play Alpha Centauri, and I couldn't help but think we'd lost our way even by that point. This genre could be a great way to tell stories, to make a player feel due to the sheer enormity of numbers you could be playing with. Instead, games feel like GUIs hung over spreadsheets, and you're only supposed to be having fun if you like seeing a number go up. I'm not saying games in this genre are creatively bankrupt. Endless Space's stories and factions are really cool. It's the method they choose to tell it that I have a problem with. Maybe I'm just bad. Scratch that, I am just bad. But you don't have to have the twitch reflexes of a 13-year-old Fortnite kid to get something at a Mass Effect or become a parry god to appreciate Dark Souls lore. I think there's untapped potential in the 4X genre that's gone dormant for years. There's more here than just staring at a map. Someone will come along and make Alpha Centauri 2. It won't be called that, it might not even be science fiction, but they will. That's the future, isn't it? Endless possibilities. Or, getting your brain eaten by mind worms. One of the two. I'll let you know when we get there. Ta-da all! Wear a helmet out there! Oh, and I suppose this is the Halloween episode. It happens to be made in October. The future. When everything's all on fire and everyone's full of plastic and hate. Yeah. That's scarier than anything else, really. Oh well.